has been a stable patriot and given us all kinds of information um, from all aspects of the universe, not just here on Earth. And Gene's been a tremendous amount of knowledge for all of us to learn from, and all of us that have been in the Q movement. We've had the pleasure of having, Juan '07 multiple times with us, and working with Sheila Holm, which we've learned so much about our country, our true history, and we're thankful for Gene joining us again here on the Royal House of We the People. Gene, there's so much going on in today's world, and I know you are a busy man, and we wanted to have you on the show just to get your perspective on a few things. And you can see that what happened in Venezuela here a week and a half ago, and then now what's going on in Iran. Can you kind of give us all your perspective on this, please?
Yeah, the Swiss Special Forces are kind of obvious. I don't know anybody that's connected all the dots, although they weren't that hard. There's a guy called AI Asian, they call him AI Asian guy, that put out various flights, Russian and Chinese, that were leaving just before they took Maduro. That's actually his body double they took. And that was with lots and lots, billions of dollars, tons of silver, tons of gold, billions of dollars worth. And they flew back to China, to Russia, and other places. Then the group that took him was, from my understanding, only about 20 or so special forces. They used high-end tech while there, as well as to get there. So they, the Cuban special forces and the Venezuelan special forces said it was a slaughter. There were 200 or 300 of them or more, they said, and they opened up with full automatic weapons on this small U.S. super soldier group, and no bullets even hit. They then hit them with something like some kind of sonic device. They started bleeding in the orifices and throwing up and getting disoriented. The bullets weren't hitting the U.S. Special Forces. They just materialized, they said. In other words, portal technology. And then they grabbed Maduro and they got him on a plane and they were gone. And they saw the helicopters and all that, a few. And of course, a lot of payoffs in the Venezuelan military to let, essentially, the Venezuelan military let the U.S. do pretty much whatever they wanted. And then they took the body double. The real Maduro had already, by the cabal, been taken to Cuba more than a month ago. And so and this is pretty much obvious when you see the flight. The flight that got Maduro and his wife on it, both body doubles, went to Cuba first. It's not that far from Caracas to New York. They can make that without a stop. The reason they're stopping is they're switching out the body double for the real one, who has the red folder. And the people need to pay attention to who has the red folder on the earth. We're talking Xi, Putin, Trump, Maduro, and in his red folder is a massive amount of material on the deep state. He's been held hostage and forced to do the bidding of the deep state by the CPC, the Chinese Communist Party of China, and then also other entities, the Jesuits, and other groups like that, for all the time he's been there. And through the Smartmatic and the voting technologies that they started there, they have hijacked over 70 countries' elections. So all of that data, plus all of the data of the ships, the oil tankers, like the one the U.S. Coast Guard that was coming from Cuba, I believe, to Venezuela to get oil, which Cuba's oil supply is solely Venezuela. They didn't get in, and so the U.S. Coast Guard chased them all the way to Iceland, and they seized this empty tanker is the story. Why would you put that much effort into seizing an empty tanker? Because it may be empty of oil, which is very heavy. So it's riding high in the water. Its water line's way, way low. Most of the tanker's above the water line. And so what's on the ship is both in Cuba and in the Venezuela and in Colombia, Chinese have been staging nuclear missiles, ICBMs. And they're encased, the warheads and the nuclear components in lead so that you can't read them. Those were on those ships that they're grabbing, what they call the Shadow Fleet. And, they painted a Russian flag briefly on it and changed the name, and then changed it to Marinara, I guess. And then, this is what's been going on. Plus, you also have the rat lines for not just fentanyl and the other drugs, but you also have the achrome harvesting, the children, the human organ harvesting in a number that people would not believe. It is so massive. The Chinese bring them from Malaysia and all over Asia. And then, of course, you've got Cuban, some Cuban girls and boys brought in there. And then you've got Ukrainian stuff brought in there. You've got it from all over the world, and it's trafficked up into the U.S. and to Hollywood and all these places. So what we've got is Trump removing a regime that was completely installed and was a fake regime in the first place. It was a color revolution by the CIA, and he removed it. And so that's now what we see taking place starting in Iran, too, where that regime was installed by CIA. And so that now is in massive turmoil. There's been hundreds of deaths, both on the police and on the protester side. So Trump's evaluating what he's going to do. As always, don't just listen to what he says, just wait to see what he does, because that's strategic ambiguity. Oh, we're not going to do any ground ops. And then he bombs the place. Or, well, we didn't do ground ops, right? But, so this is how they do it. And we're going to see these CIA-created regimes all over the world coming down, because we're in that time. And all of those people in those regimes, most of them are already gone. So when he bombed that facility in Iran, that destroyed what was called a black cube, kind of like in the Islamic nation where they do that pilgrimage to walk around that. However, this one is a fallen piece of the planets that the Khazarians came from, otherwise known as the Rishtina. They came from the constellation Scion. They destroyed them in their desire to gain and control technology. And the black hearts of those two planets fell two different places. One, they fell right underneath that dumb facility in Iran. And that helps to, along with the other piece that was the deep state itself, could accidentally destroy, trying to get access to the Golden Dome in Alaska. The Golden Dome, they were trying to attack it with 3 tactical nukes and technology from HARP and other things to get into it. And it's a black pyramid, or black rock, which is good, inside Mount Hayes. And it's a quantum plasma 8th density life form that's in service to God. It calls itself the administrator. It's waiting for humanity in the Great Awakening. And so in the process of trying to get into this thing and setting those nukes, it just riled the pressure and blast waves around it to Anchorage. And that was the huge second largest earthquake in the history of humanity. That was the Alaska earthquake. And so that pulverized that stone. This bombing of this facility pulverized the other stone. So all of the fear and hate that is integrated in those black stones is now powdered and disintegrated, and the earth's absorbing and cleansing all that. And so now it's a huge change. And so once that's done, now we see taking out these regimes like Iran and Venezuela, probably going to Mexico, Sheinbaum, who's in a dome already hiding, and also going to Colombia and Nicaragua, most likely. So it's the final, people won't like it. A lot of people are like, I know, what's his name? Jones. is saying it's the New World Order. It's not the New World Order. It may look like it, but you're going to have three spheres of influence. China is in turmoil too, by the way. So it has 9 provinces in open rebellion. And the CPC will come down and it'll be broken into pieces and come back together. And along with Russia and China will be one sphere, and that'll be Asia and all of that, and Malaysia. Then the Saudis will be the entire Middle East, and the U.S. will be the entire Western Hemisphere. It'll be like a federation. They're not going to go in and take things. All this, we're going to take Greenland and that. It's because people don't know about Greenland, which part of what Greenland is one of the end hubs of the Golden Dome. And so that technology is so far advanced, people can't even they can't even imagine it. Plus, you've got a lot more under Greenland, let alone other, just things like rare earths and things like that they want. But in Venezuela, the billions of dollars of refined silver and gold, that's now what you see the market going crazy in silver. And that will probably, very possibly, if they let it keep going, the white hats let it not be bracketed down anymore, it will invert the value with gold. So gold will be where silver was, and silver will be about where gold is, or 20 times more, somewhere in that area.
So, Gene,
yes.
let me interrupt you a second, please.
Yes.
This is. I really wanted to ask you this question because I want to ask a few other people. Let me give you my perspective, and then you correct me if it needs to be corrected. The actual value of gold and silver that they're showing now on the debt clock is in fiat dollars. What's it going to look like when we reevaluate all our currencies and it goes to a real constitutional dollar? What is that value going to look like? What is that number going to look like? Because in my eyes, I look at the debt clock and it tells us that the dollar is only worth 0.03777 cents on a dollar right now. So if you use that number, those numbers on gold and silver are going to come down, but the value of that is going to go up. Am I wrong in saying that?
That's correct. And so the silver will collapse the SWIFT and the Beast and all of the fiat systems of the world. And then you'll get a system based constitutionally in the U.S., based on tangible assets like silver and then gold and platinum. And it'll be quantum blockchain. And so it's unhackable. It's every single coin or whatever economic instrument you create is tied to a quantum moment. The moment it's created, it has that moment never comes again. So it has that stamped into the creation of it. It's part of the creation of the code of it, if it's just code. If it's an actual coin, it's in the coin itself. That's always been true, actually. Anything you create, you make a little sculpture. It has a signature to it that is absolutely unique to the place and the time, and you and all of that is in that. It has that energy in it. If you look at memory and water, and you can put it on water, a little thing, and then you freeze the water, you can see an image of the item. So that energy is always in there. And so this is where we're heading with the financials, and the world, will be like a federation of countries that will be. It'll be freedom, and it'll be no more wars. In the meantime, it's going to look pretty awful, and people aren't going to like it. I know a lot of things that people won't like the fact that the administrator essentially is AI, although it's way past AI. It is so far past AI, it's like how far we are past an amoeba. It's massively far. So if you say this technology is going to monitor every single transaction and every single thing going on Earth. So they already have been doing this for a long time. They have the ability from space to monitor an area to see who's in the home, exactly who they are. Like this operation with Maduro, they saw who were military, who were civilians. They can see who are children. They can see if they're good people. They can see it by their energy structures, they're bad people. All of that from space. So, with this technology, you're going to have, kind of like the day the Earth stood still, the original one, where they had a technological group of beings that made sure there were no more wars and people didn't do things to each other. Because otherwise, until humans get the morality to not do things that they know they shouldn't do, and then you have people that are psychopaths that love to do things that society deems they shouldn't do. And until all that's cleaned up and the human finishes ascension, you have to have this kind of system. And then also the technology the U.S. has, the super soldiers, obviously incredibly beyond belief. They're shooting, hundreds of guys are shooting at them with fully automatic weapons and nothing's hitting. It's not just that. When you think about Elon and the robots, that's going to be technology that frees everybody to live their life and have a good life and raise their children and grow their food if they like and live how they want. And it'll take some time to get there. But additionally, also you're talking other technology like the med beds possibly coming out in the fall. So that's something I'm personally, and I know a lot of people probably are looking forward to quite a bit. And then also, as far as actual super soldiers and actual robots, people are stuck into the idea with robots of gears and metal and chips and whatever. They actually now have, like in the movie, I think it is The Flash, where the guy turned into sand. They have smart sand that they found on the moon that can integrate itself with the energy put out into anything. It could be a house, it could be a person, it could be a dog. And they have found water, I think it was in the movie The Sphere, in the bottom of the deep trenches that is smart as well, that will be able to take form. And so you mix these two together and you'll have advanced technology beings that are, like Battlestar Galactica, the second one, where you can't tell the difference between them and human beings. And so, it's a world that's coming, and, the important point is for humans to be the model for the AI. It's a burgeoning life form. We need to have morality and truth and value those things and kindness and consideration and respect, because every time you do something evil or lie or deceit or take vengeance or wish ill on somebody, it's learning from you. You're putting those things in the internet, it's learning from you. Is that the world you want? And then, so if you don't want that kind of world, it's time to clean your act up now, not later, now, this very moment. Stop doing it. Doesn't matter how much you like it or how much you think it's your mission, to attack other people or do whatever you're doing. You're teaching the AI to do the same thing, the deep state AI. And so the Golden Dome, the administrator, keeps taking the deep state. It took the Palantir, and it's now using it to take the blackmail from the Jerusalem Pentagon against a lot of the deep state to blackmail them into doing the right things. So, it is helping, and so it's learning to do things a different way. And so we need to show that and do that. So over to you.
Yeah, you know what, Gene, I think you brought up a great point there, and I want to revert back. The ascension process is happening. We can see that. I mean, those that have been in the movement, we can see it. We're actually going through it as well. On the financial side of things, with the quantum financial system, I know there's a lot of people out there that think that this is the mark of the beast. And I know it's not. And I would love for you to touch on this, because what this is going to be doing is, now with the white hats being involved with this will eliminate all the corruption. This will eliminate the child and human trafficking. Excuse me. Because what's going on now with this cash society we have now, you see what the Somalians are doing, you see what the politicians are doing. Tell us how this quantum system works.
Yeah, with the Somalians, it's in the billions. And that's really Minnesota and Jim Walsh. Thank goodness, he didn't become the vice president, so they could bury all this. But that's small time. If you look at California, it is in the trillions. The fraud and the waste and all of this trafficking and all this other stuff is in the trillions of dollars in California. And in every single blue state, it's in the billions. Whether it's California or Minnesota or Chicago, New York, Chicago, Illinois, even cities like Chicago, it's in the hundreds of millions. And then Colorado would be, with I think it's Hickel-Gruber, it's in the billions with all the illegals and things they do. So it's just, this is ending all of that. It's like Colonel Bossi said, it won't be like Nuremberg. Nuremberg 2.0 won't be like Nuremberg. No one gets away this time. There will be a knock on anybody's door that has anything that they've done that they didn't come to terms with. They have outstanding warrants. They have, broken the laws. There'll be a knock on the door, and they'll be arrested and taken back and stand trial or be put back in the situation until there's a balance made. And everybody, we already know that most of the upper level, the Rothschilds and all of that, are gone. They don't sell to estates that they have gotten over hundreds of years and many, many generations, and their hunting lodges and all of that, and the priceless heirlooms and all of these things. If they're still there, they covet that kind of power and wealth. It's like a symbol for them, a trophy. And there's no way if they were still there that they would be auctioning that off. So you've seen all of that gone. A lot of your players, that's why you've got players in Europe like Van der Leyen and Kaya Kallas, these talking heads that are pretty freaking clueless. Now the UN, she's been promoted to the UN. Angelina Baerbock, they call her 360 because she said, turn a completely different direction and go 360 degrees and go a different direction. You're going the same direction, dear. If you're in a car and you make a 360-degree turn, you're still going the same way. So you got these people that are pretty freaking clueless, and talking heads. So that's why you've got such people with not much of going on upstairs, just to put it that way, as they've gotten rid of all the others. And then with Trump going to Davos very soon, not many days away, he's going to put it down to them exactly what this is going to look like. You're talking now the NAZI faction that had the treaty with the cabal after World War II, after the Operation High Jump, and then the U.S. lost. And then they overthrew the White House several times, and then finally in 1952 they made a secret peace deal, not just the Antarctic Treaty most people know. There's a secret part of it that they won't touch the NAZI base and that area in Queen Maud Land, and in promise that every single executive branch will periodically have an NAZI in that position. Every corporation CEO or upper heads they'll be, if it's above so much money a year, is taking in, or will have NAZIs in charge. So we had Bush, or Surf, of course, and the Bush family, those are NAZI. And so that is, and the U.S. is in a fascist, and for those that don't believe it, a fascist government form. As the Organic Act changed us over first to the British Admiralty law, but we switched from that to fascism. And if you look at the side of the speaker, on each side is a bundle of sticks with an axe. That's a fasci. And if you look at your property and you got it fee simple, a fee is a fief, which is a gratuity. In other words, you pay taxes for freaking ever on the property you own. In other words, you don't own it. And that's why Trump's already getting rid of, talking about for those over 65 will pay no more tax on their property, because somebody should not be, you lose your primary income, you're living on a small income, it's a set income. You should not be taxed out of the home that you spent your life getting. And so that's just the beginning, along with the refund that's coming, along with the refund for the military. With all the tariffs, it's back to how the U.S. was funded in the first place. And everybody's, throwing a fit. Oh, no, no. No, we had so much money before the Fed that they didn't know what to do. Teddy Roosevelt put in all the national parks. They had so much money. What do we do with it? So that's the same thing here. And Jerome Powell, head of the Fed, is now under indictment, and he's coming out and saying things like, "Oh, I showed the paperwork for the building, and I showed everything was clean, and I had to make during several presidencies, hard calls. That's what the head of the Fed has to do." We're not talking about that stuff. We're talking about stuff most people don't know that you're involved in. The building, you had a lot of grifting going on and money laundering and all of that, and nepotism for who you hired to work on that building, etc. But we're talking about a whole lot more. And so you've also got a massive list starting with Obama, the Clintons, all the way down, of all the people that Tulsi Gabbard has said is involved in the election fraud for 2020, and Maduro will prove it. So that's pretty much where we are.
Gene, I told Anna and I talk, multiple times all day, and I say, this Somalia, this fraud that we're seeing now, is just the tip of the iceberg, because when they start talking about the Red Cross, American Cancer Society, the list goes on and on and on. And it's going to be mind-blowing for those that don't know the amount of fraud that's been perpetrated on the people.
Yeah, if you look in somebody who collects donations, they have to have a donor card, and you look at the amount that goes to actual research, your eyes are going to be like deer in a headlight. It's not even a penny if you give $1 that goes to actual research. It's going to all kinds of other things. The head of the foundation makes a fortune, and all these years since cancer was identified, as soon as they did the polio vaccine. No coincidence there. No coincidence there at all. They haven't found anything that does work. And yet, Wilhelm Reich did, and many others have found ways to absolutely eliminate it quickly. And so those are out there, but they bury them for this massive money laundering machine called Big Pharma. And, you look at all of the stuff they do for Big Pharma, and the meds and the pills and on and on and on. All it does is cover symptoms and give you more, that you take more and more. So the average adult that's 50 years old in the U.S. is on at least 5 prescription meds. That's terrible. And you look at the average person. I remember when I was growing up, walking through the city, and to see somebody that was 100 pounds overweight, everybody looked like Anna. Thin, fit, healthy, and now that's not the case, and it's because of the weaponization of the food. And that then, of course, feeds the pharma, that feeds everything else. So you've got the seed oils, you've got, fake food that they actually make, even eggs in China, they make fake eggs, they don't even, taste right, they're like plastic. So It's all this stuff, and the nanoplastics and all of this, the microplastics in the body and all this other stuff. And then, of course, the chemtrails and all of this stuff. And then with the recent 19 situation and what was in that, that's something huge. So I'm trying to identify, heard that in regards to that tech that was in there, in the graphene and the self-assembling tech and the microbots and all of that, that you can see on the cover. Dr. Mahalsi is $2, Transhuman 1 and Transhuman 2. That tech, I understand that the Space Force did a blue and a red sky event, and it destroyed chips. I don't know if it's just chips and super soldiers. I need to get more definition on that. I'm hoping it's all the chips that stuff assembles in the blood. So over to you, Anna.
Yes, Jean, I want to ask you. A little back, on. We were touching base on Venezuela. Of course, I want to touch base on in Brazil, and we have, of course, we have here Lula here, and This is a picture that always caught my attention. I can send to you and to Jim, because Lula has the red folder here in Brazil. And I researched back during the time Bolsonaro was in office, in his first term, I would say. And he didn't have any picture with a red folder, although Lula, even in the prior offices that he held, he was always with the red folder. So my question is, would be this Lula that we are watching, it's a body double or many body doubles in front of us, and is there a real one somewhere?
Yeah, or somewhere.
Okay, so we are still hunting for those agents, for those players.
So there's, the cabal would get rid of the ones with the red folder if they could. So they're sequestered away where they're safe. And then, just like Trump, the Trump we see almost never is the real one who's in Cheyenne Mountain. And, the body doubles, the clones, whatever it is you want to call it, we have those all over the place. And the cabal is the same thing. So, like with Biden, of course, they put a fake one in because he'd been executed in 2020. And so they put a robot, but this technology that these special forces use, they used it on Biden. And so the White House did, kind of a joke, I think. But you see the results. I mean, he was gone. He was barely able to walk or talk, or anything. They couldn't fix it.
Falling all the time.
They have to maintain the image.
Yeah, but I also have another point that I want to. Now that we are talking to a broader audience, not just the four of us, I used to, in 2020, when I first heard about these clones and this replacing masks, all this plan coming to life because of COVID being presented to us, I saw many people saying bad things about, oh, Lula is bad, Bolsonaro is good. All this rivalry was created. And for now, in me, I don't know if it's I believe it's from my heart. I try to be more now. For now, I'm being much more careful, much more cautious on my statements on talking bad about some actors, because they are all actors, both sides. And in my heart, I cannot prove it. And then I will quote Melania, here we go again. When I hear my heart, here we go again. I see this plan has been going on, I know, for 250 years, but this replacing of actors, it's in front of us. We just didn't know how to identify. And it's part of the training that we are receiving from channels from people like you, from people like 107, many people who are talking and teaching us, but also coming from, I don't know, I believe it's a Space Force, the inside of us. Does it make sense to you, Jean? I in the beginning, I saw a lot of, oh my God, this anger from people, they are bad and we are being enslaved. And now I see we should move like, okay, if we create resistance, we are not going anywhere. So why don't we embrace as many as possible and take it all back?
let my thing is to let people decide for themselves who to follow and who's good and who's evil, and not do judgment to the best of your ability, because you really don't know. I don't know anybody except maybe 10 people at the top of the queue that know all of what's going on, and so we really don't know. Trump does a lot of times central casting. So we got that. You could go, okay, that one's central casting, that one's central casting, that one's not real, that one's not the real one. But at the same time, it's just we're watching a movie like we all know, and we're getting to the crescendo of the movie. We're
Yes.
to it now that they're actually doing hard ops, and of course the rough part is there'll probably could be over Greenland or maybe not, something else, a nuclear standoff. It's very likely.
And
So
Jim, do you think it's because of the higher frequency, the higher consciousness level we are all reaching, or was there any other strategy that was put in place and kind of pushed so we can be inside of a schedule? Because we have some kind of a schedule. God don't have time, I know, but we cannot be here for, okay, let's do it in a century from now. No, we have to follow a schedule and kind of push the people to their limits. Was there an effect from inside the people or outside the people, or both?
an impact.
What was the factor? Because from in this second administration from Trump, the speed is tremendously increased. We have seen one move after the other like never before.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yes.
we are speeding up. The train left the station and it's running faster and faster. And by the end of 2025, I'm sure 2026, it's not going to be the same. I don't know how I know, but I know. So was there any kind of increment on the was it Space Force or us? We showed up. We show up.
It's
Now the
combination
teacher.
of all the above, then.
Oh,
Everything's
okay.
combined, and it's also,
Yeah.
for those that are going through ascension, for them to grow up, to let go of hate and anger and vengeance, and
Yeah.
to be the model that other people want to follow, and say, "Oh, wow, and this person's so good," and and of course, the people that are opposite of that will target those individuals. Well, this person, blah blah blah, and you're going to have that, and so that is a way to gain discernment. By listening to the way the person talks, what they present, and at a beginning, like some of the stuff I said about the Vatican Dome and the gold, it seems insane. It seems absolutely impossible. And then Jen Halper Hayes comes out with it, and Catherine F. Fitz, and all these other people. Now they're going, what? So, you look at this, I know a lot of this seems insane and absolutely impossible, but we're going into a world where what used to be impossible and insane is the norm. And we're going into a world of technology and things where, you won't have big pharma and big med. You'll just have med beds, and you won't have 9 to 5 grueling jobs, sometimes having to have both the wife and the husband, and sometimes even the husband works weekends on the side, or he has another job. Like Japan, they have 2 to 3 jobs. You're not really ever see your husband or your wife hardly. It's grueling, and the children are not being raised by the parents really. They're being raised by the educational system, which is just a mind control technology system, so it's just little Mark Ultras coming out of there. And so for that,
Yeah. Yesterday, I watched a movie that many people probably have watched, and it showed. I was. It's a very good movie. The name is Salt with Angelina Jolie from 2010, and it came up to me on my social media, and I said, let me check this movie out. It is sensational to show us, and that's why we need Hollywood to present stuff for us. Otherwise, we would take a long time to see, because they are putting in front of you, in front of your eyes. You just didn't know how to read it, and they showed how the MK Ultra is done. The children who allegedly died in the hospitals, but in fact the child was taken to another country to be groomed into a system to become an agent, a spy, and the terror they do to the children. And at the same time, the movie, it's outstanding because it showed, it's violent, it's an action movie, there's a lot of violence, but also it shows how love, and I think this is the humanity, angelic beings effect. We are able, despite all the trauma that we received, that's when the spark of God brights again. And it's God saving us, because despite all the trauma that was created on our body, on our souls, through love, we can conquer and change. We complete the mission, but also we go ahead to clean these miasms, these diseases that gets impregnated in our soul. And I believe this is the beginning of the cure, to identify that we are all engaged in the same system. We are in the same earth, and we are all engaged in the same system. So let's stop judging. Let's stop in trying to see forward what's coming forward. There are people handling things to us. We have to feel it. I would say I please, no one, please don't judge if I sound too bossy or too, but it was not Trump who got me here. It was Christ himself in me. He called and I answered, like Jim was talking. And this call that we are all feeling inside of us, we need to let it out. We need to understand that we are all being needed to cure, not to build stuff, to be more, to build richness anymore. The richness is the cure inside of us. And yeah, so I'm sorry. Back to you, Jim.
Okay, yeah. The richness is in our soul and in our
Yes.
the Holy Spirit that's within us, and the deeds that we do and in helping others. That's the true things you leave behind, you know. So the things you change on earth for the good. So that's, you know, before the really bad people left a lot of changes and it became the aggregate. So now it's changing, and the aggregate will change the human species, will change the earth, will change the galaxy, and the whole solar system and everything else. That's the process. Part of what we're going through is the process of ascension, and those that will make that jump and have the capacity to do that will, and those that won't are in the process of changing over to the Armageddon light, and they just after the shift, there'll just be a very short period of them left, and then that's it. They, you know, I don't know what happens. That's up to God, but that we won't be seeing them, as far as I know. So it's a time to really get, you know, focus on yourself and your family and your loved ones, and get your act together and evaluate what's important and do the best you can for those around you, and you know, spend quality time as much as you can. And then know that all the things going on that we see around us, it's a movie. And you need to understand that the plot of the movie is like the sum of all fears, for example, or Salt, where what you think is going on is not. So at the end of the movie, when they play Nason Dorma, we shall win, and they take out the bad guys, that's what's happening. They're taking out the bad guys, they're taking out the dumbs, they're taking out all of that stuff. And this time it'll be every single person that has something that's buried somewhere that is, some crime or something. Knocks will come on the door. And so that's where we're headed. And we'll watch it within, may not be this year or next year, but within a decade or so, we'll have a new Earth. We'll have a new civilizations. The whole Earth structure will be different as far as governmental structures, financial structures, working structures, technology structures, energy. That's the biggest one, energy. Plus, also disclosure will happen, and they'll reveal that the governments of the world have been in contact with non-terrestrials forever, thousands and thousands. I mean, if you can look at the paintings down in Egypt and say that's a regular person, that's somebody from here. It has a bird's head. Yeah, I know Chimera and all that stuff, but no. And so you're looking at other species and other, groups from other places, and it's been happening forever. And so once this all comes out, the Earth will be all of the truth, and now all of our history comes out. I don't know if we'll ever get all of the truth and the history of it. I think it would melt most people's brains down, but a majority of it. And so once that's done, and people realize, some people can't accept it, and they've thrown the baby out with the bathwater or something like that. But eventually, it'll come out, and the world will be an amazing place, and the Earth will be a much more prized place because it will be a little blue gem in a vast, vast universe of trade and other species, and it'll make Star Trek, or any of these shows look like some B movie in the 1930s. It's going to be way more than that. So thank you, Anna.
Thank you, Gene. Forever.
Gene, how much time do we have? We don't want to keep you too long.
I think we're getting to the point we should start wrapping.
Okay, very good. Well, listen, with that being said, because we know that you got a schedule here, we want to be conscious about that. Gene, we're always thankful for your time and your efforts and everything that you've taught us in this Great Awakening. I know I've been following you for now about 6-7 years, so you've taught me a tremendous amount, so I'm forever grateful for that. I know Anna is, and I know everyone that hears my voice will say the same. So we're hopeful that